That is. Oh, good evening. I'm going to call the finance meeting to order. I am present, Jamie Puccioni, Councilmember Brennan, Councilmember De La Rada, Councilmember McPartlin, Councilmember Moskowitz, Town Attorney Finnan, Comptroller Beth Greenwood, Janet Wynn. We have Seth Goldstein, Chief Koshin, Diane Percy, Lori Peretti, Laura Robertson, Ray Smith, Matt Yetto. All right, may I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes? Did I miss anyone? May I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from November 9th, 2022, finance meeting?
Motion to approve the minutes from November 9th.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any changes to those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those minutes are approved. Moving on to items for action.
Okay, good evening. The first item is a resolution to accept a $250,000 SAM grant for improvements to River Road Park, Avon Crest Park, Fieldstone Park, and Lions Park. Did the supervisor want to speak to that?
Sure, absolutely. So this is another $250,000 grant that we have been awarded through Assemblymember Steck's office. And I have worked in conjunction with several department heads to identify needs in town, also working with Councilmember McPartlin to identify the needs in town. These funds are slated to go towards making additional improvements to River Road Park, Avon Crest Park, as well as trail improvements at Fieldstone Park.
Excellent.
And we just want to continue to thank Assemblymember Steck for his commitment to supporting our town and commitment to helping us make improvements.
Absolutely.
Yes, I think this is the third $250,000 same grant we've got from someone in Steck in the past couple, maybe 2-3 years.
I'd say the last two. I think we got one or two last year as well.
That's it. Yeah, that mic is on.
The mic is on.
Yes, so that's $750,000 in a couple of years from someone in Steck. So it's great support that we get. Absolutely. Thank you, Supervisor. I'm sure we'll be able to get that resolution on the agenda.
Yes, that resolution we anticipate will be on the agenda next month, and we have a timeline for those projects. Similar to this year, we intend to get those projects completed within a year. Working with Superintendent Ray Smith, our department head Lori Peretti, and Laura Robertson, we have a very aggressive timeline to get these improvements made to our parks and hopefully have them completed by the fall of 2023.
Okay, excellent. The next item is a resolution to approve the new controlled substances and alcohol testing policy specific toward DOT-covered employees. These are our employees who do hold a CDL license. Because that program is federally administered, it has very specific requirements and standards that we have to abide by and ensure that our employees are meeting. Following that, there's going to be a resolution to approve the new controlled substances and alcohol testing policy for non-DOT covered employees who drive a town vehicle. This is the most significant change to our policy is this portion of it. And that's why we've divided what was a single policy into two policies. With the legalization of marijuana in the state of New York, it has changed what we are and are not allowed to do with regard to drug and alcohol testing. And we needed to ensure that our policies were in compliance with the new state requirements. So by splitting the policy into the two new policies, we are doing that and maintaining all the requirements while still keeping our workforce safe. So I think that will be very helpful. Are there any questions on those? I know I sent them out there a bit long. It seemed like they were fairly clear to everybody. So, okay, great. Thank you. The next is a resolution to purchase computers. I know Seth had spoken about this a bit during the budgeting process. He had a plan to purchase a portion of the computers this year, finishing up his budget, and then next year with the 2023 budget monies. These are all on state contract, And he's got that all lined up so that we can kind of purchase them close enough in time to one another so that we end up with compatible equipment. Okay, we will also have a resolution to approve the 2023 non-rep salary chart because the initial organizational meeting won't be until, I think it's the 10th
The 10th.
of January. We just wanted to make sure that we had the salary schedule in line for payroll to be able to process correctly. And then next we get into the approvals. We are requesting approval to renew the annual VT SCADA software maintenance and support agreement that is for the water and sewer systems. That's the software that Matt uses. Could we get finance approval for that, please?
Okay, do we have any discussion, any questions? All right, all those in favor of approving the renewal of the annual VTS CADA software maintenance and support agreement indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that is approved.
Okay, and the next item, did you get the amounts on this next one? I didn't have them. Okay. So we'd need approval to purchase materials for water pump station upgrades not to exceed $9,000.
Does anyone have any questions? Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the purchase for materials for the water pump station upgrades not to exceed $9,000 indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is approved.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a discussion regarding certain certain budgetary modifications. You'll see I've got those attached. It's several pages long, typical to this time of year as we're just cleaning up everything for the end of the year. You'll also notice on there, sorry, I'm losing my voice today. There is a shift out of the fund balance to cover the $250,000 grant for those 4 park improvements. Like we did with the last one, we will set up a capital project. We're going to get to that in our grant tracking process. But we set that aside in a capital project so it's cleanly tracked and easier to get those reimbursements done in a timely fashion. On that note, I had passed along a new internal grant tracking process. It's fairly basic. It's just to make sure that we're all doing the background work to ensure that we're tracking all the grants correctly. So you'll notice when we do the resolution to accept the SAM grant, on that, I've put kind of the information we need in each resolution to ensure that any department head applying for and receiving a grant will have that all noted so that we're understanding whether or not the grant requires a match or if it's reimbursable in either of those cases where we're taking the funds from to set up that capital project, how we're going to go about tracking that and ensuring that we then reconcile the expenses and get any reimbursements back that we're supposed to get.
Thank you. May I add?
Absolutely.
Going back to item A, we will be getting, I also forgot, we'll be addressing the, some upgrades at Lions Park. The intention is to improve the deck around the Lions Park train station. And I would like to give an update. Our $250,000 grant that we received this year, in which we moved fund balance over and we were able to complete those projects in less than 12 months, we should be able to apply for a reimbursement for those grants in the next month. So I anticipate that those funds that we transferred from the fund balance will then be returned to the town in, again, less than 12 months. So this is a normal process in which we move fund balance over to a reserve fund to then pay for these projects, which will then be reimbursed by DASNY at the when those projects are completed and the receipts are submitted, and the process is the money then will be returned to the fund balance. Does anyone have any questions about how that works? Okay.
No, and exactly as the supervisor said, that's part of why we wanted to write the process down to make sure that we were following it, to ensure that the reimbursements were as timely as possible. And the reason we're doing it as individual capital fund projects like this is so that we can, in the case that it crosses over a fiscal year boundary, we can keep that money segregated and make it just a little bit cleaner to track and then get those reimbursements done as quickly as possible.
So you're going to be setting up an account for each grant, correct?
Correct, yes. We'll set up a little capital project account for every single grant. The money will go into that, be spent out of that, and then we'll be able to, just the way our software works, it makes it very easy for us to keep everything itemized and match everything and then put in for the reimbursements.
Thank you.
All it is doing is streamlining the administration. So little bit
Well, it
more-
allows it you and then the town board, if you will, and you to update us on how the projects and how the grants
Absolutely.
are going and the status of them.
absolutely.
And it allows for multi-year funding because
So-
we run into that issue.
Yes.
So for example, if you were to look at the grant tracking process, once I received information that the SAM grant was awarded, I then forwarded that information on to the comptroller's office. At that time, I also shared the agency it was coming from was SAM grant, the amount $250,000. Whether the grant is direct or reimbursable, it is reimbursable. It will not require matching funds. The source of the matching funds, the sources of the funds will come from the fund balance. The rough timeline of the project is to start in the spring of 2023 and be completed at the end of the fall of 2023. So we're being very, we have a very organized process, and we are trying to make sure that this process is transparent, that it is very detail oriented, and so we can complete projects in a timely manner.
Okay. And finally, the last, it's again an internal process. We're just, again, kind of going through how we do business a lot up in our department and trying to make sure that we're being as efficient as we can to support the other departments. This is our timesheet processing. This we couldn't adjust until we hit the end of a year, beginning of a new year. So this requires a little bit of an explanation. So currently, the way we process payroll, about midway through a time period, you get paid. But you haven't even completed the time period for which you're getting paid. So the payroll clerk has to kind of project what she thinks everybody's going to work. That goes into the paycheck. And then the following paycheck, when she's gotten the information from the previous one, she updates accruals and takes care of overtime. And so there's kind of this weird push and pull, and it's never really truly up to date because we're paying ahead a little bit for the work, but then because we're doing it that way, the actual accruals and overtime kind of lag. So it's a very confusing system for a lot of people, especially when we get to the end of the year and we're trying to do things like buyout comp time and things like that. It can really cause chaos. So what we're looking to do, and I did include a little calendar for everybody's edification here for 2023. We will pay out through the very end of the year for December. So everybody will get their check. And the last check we do is always a paper check because we're very short with all the holidays. So it's a faster process for us to generate paper checks for people. So we'll do that for the very end of the year per the normal procedures. So then in January, the first time sheet will start on the 1st of January and it will go through the 8th. So the time sheet will end on the 8th, like they normally end on a Sunday. It will be reviewed by the various department heads. They'll check their people's hours. They'll sign off on it. It'll go over to payroll. She'll process it, and everyone will get paid on the 13th for the first week, basically, worth of January. So it'll be just a 1-week pay on the 13th. Following that, the next timesheet will go from the 9th through to the 22nd. So that'll be a normal 2-week. Again, everybody will have the opportunity to review their department's timesheets, make sure the overtime is correct, make sure the accruals are correct. It will then go to the payroll clerk and they'll be paid out on the 27th. So the cycle will stay the same with the exception that timesheets will have been actually fully completed, reviewed and signed by supervisors before they're processed by the payroll clerk. So that way, everybody's accruals, their overtime will all be kept right up to date and current, and they'll know exactly where they stand. So it is a little bit of shift internally how we're doing things, but I think it'll make it a lot easier for the workforce to kind of know where they are and keep everybody current with their overtime, which I think will be a very nice thing for the employees as well. So we will be putting a kind of an FAQs in everybody's payroll just to kind of explain this, because anytime we change anything, we want to make sure that everybody knows what we're doing and it's not confusing or upsetting to them. So just if they have any questions, we'll be sorting that out. But we just wanted the board to know as well, mainly because that very first paycheck that everybody gets in the new year will only reflect 1 week. And I don't want anyone to think that we forgot to pay everybody for a week. That's not the case, but it's just because of the way we're shifting it. At the end of the year, again, next year, we'll do the usual where we pay out through the end of the year, even though that's kind of the old system, but it just keeps it clean for fiscal year purposes. So. And
I got a question.
Absolutely.
On the same sort of subject. A few years back, we approved a new timekeeping system,
Mhm.
right? But it's, to my knowledge, has that been worked on at all? And is there any possibility of that becoming online? Janet's shaking her head no.
So sadly, the timing of that processing system was
They're now obsolete.
They're
with
obsolete,
their
yeah.
New upgrade.
COVID hit and nobody wanted to use a biometric touch screen. And because it wasn't used and put into work, it's now all completely obsolete. So we tried to find a way to sell it back because parts of it are still in the box. That was not well received by the company. We are looking to possibly see if we can recycle it, potentially for auction it to another town who maybe uses the same equipment. There's
So
really
the-
no way
this-
for us to use it at
Is
this
this
point.
company still, supporting this system?
So Munis is mandating us to upgrade to a new environment, which is going to be online instead of in-house. And the time clocks are not compatible with that. So we would have to start all over again and buy new time clocks and go with the whole thing. What they're willing to do is, because they can't take the time clocks back, they're willing to give us money towards the implementation training that we're going to have when we go live in February.
For the new upgraded system. But it's still not compatible to the time clocks.
So that equipment we bought, we're not going to be using.
We can't use it. It won't be compatible once we upgrade.
Was it in that time clock system was attached to Munis, or it was a,
Mhm. Before they got bought out. So I don't know if that's part of the problem, but they're telling us that they're completely obsolete and that it won't work with this new web-based configuration. And we hung out there and they're forcing us to move over. If we don't move to the web-based configuration, we won't no longer be supported. And we just can't have that.
no, we can't have that. Okay, well, we'll talk a
It-
little more about that.
yeah.
I'd like to get a little more information about that.
Yeah, well, we had some ideas actually that we tossed around today, so you can step up anytime.
Okay, I will.
That's all we had that was new. All the remaining things that are listed out are from everybody else's committee meetings for the beginning of the month.
Thank you. Moving on to public safety. Do we need to go through any of these one by one? No? Okay. Does anybody have anything to add from the floor? All right, that's all we have for tonight's finance meeting agenda. At this time, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second,
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
We stand adjourned, and we'll begin our agenda meeting at 7 o'clock.